You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. So the next article I wanted to take a look at is called "Conservative Charlie Kirk Mocks Protesters. Racism Doesn't Exist." This is by Hemant Mehta. Let's give this a read and see what it says. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk, half of the brain cell behind Liberty University's Falkirk Center for Faith and Liberty, said on Twitter today that racism, or at least the kind of systemic racism pervasive throughout our nation's history, is a lie. He also mocked everyone protesting against the police brutality, because of course he did. We're going to get to the tweets in a second, but I just want to talk about Charlie Kirk. So, as Hemant Mehta mentions here, he's half the brain cell behind Liberty University's Falkirk Center for Faith and Liberty. Liberty University is actually really big and really famous, and if you don't know what it is, it's a Christian university, like extreme Christian university, and a lot of famous Christians go there and speak. If you guys remember forever ago, Trump got up on that podium and said 2 Corinthians. He quoted a verse from 2 Corinthians instead of 2 Corinthians. That's where it was. It was at Liberty University. And Charlie Kirk, a lot of the time, if you follow Charlie Kirk on Twitter, he's constantly tweeting stuff that he thinks will get him retweeted by Trump. Like, he's written books and stuff about how great Trump is, how's Trump Nation, and all this other stuff. He has actually caught Trump's attention. He does get retweeted by him fairly frequently now. But I've seen Charlie Kirk debate people like Kyle Kulinski. I mean, that's where I first heard of Charlie Kirk, was from his debate with Secular Talk's Kyle Kulinski. The guy is pretty toxic, generally speaking. He's bomb thrower, if you will. So anyway, with all that being said, let's read this guy's tweets and see what he said about it. Imagine marching in the streets and dedicating your life to something that doesn't exist. It must be a miserable life to believe America is a racist country. It takes effort to believe something so materially false. You know, somebody who says that hasn't been to Baltimore and lived their life on the streets as a black person. The cops in Baltimore, Maryland, are notoriously monsters. It is horrific. The fact that he's so capable of denying it is actually really sad. It means that there is truly a racial divide that is completely shielding some people from it, to the point where they genuinely have no idea that this is going on. Like, you hear about these cases of police brutality, George Floyd, where he kneeled on his neck for like 9 minutes and killed him. But you hear people say, well, that was just one case, that's why it was such a big deal, because it was one case. No, we actually hear about this stuff all the time. It just doesn't make national news is the problem. Not to mention the fact that cops don't all carry body cams. Do you guys know why street gangs exist in the first place? How the Bloods and the Crips formed in the first place? Those gangs, specifically the Crips, is what I'm talking about here. I've researched these for cult purposes because street gangs operate like cults in many ways. Anyway, the Crips started as a defense mechanism for young black men to protect each other from the police. They knew if they were walking home, they were going to get beaten, possibly to death, by the police in the 1940s. So what they started doing is they would all gather in a group and they would walk home together so that the police couldn't attack them or hurt them. They would have to take all of them, and they knew that they couldn't. So these street gangs, specifically the Crips, were growing bigger and bigger and protecting each other from the police. That's how it started. And it really devolved from there. Street gangs are not good now, to say the least. Street gangs are violent and dangerous and hurt people within their own community a lot of the time. It's not great, but that's how they started. It was a protection against police brutality. And look at what we're dealing with now. I mean, people think that this was so long ago, slavery ended like 150 years ago. You're still complaining about this? Yeah, that's true. Technically speaking, slavery ended 150 years ago in the U.S., but Jim Crow laws lasted for decades. The civil rights movement didn't happen until 1964. Desegregation didn't happen until 1964. People were still drinking from blacks and whites' water fountains, sitting on black and white sections of the city bus until the 1960s. And it's only been 50 years, if that. What? It's been, all right, we'll say it's only been like less than 60 years now. There are people alive today who were adults who had to drink from colored water fountains. It was not that long ago. Seriously, it wasn't that long ago. How can you say in any realistic way or honest, unironic way that racism, systemic racism, has been dealt with and does not exist? It's only been 50 or 60 years since we desegregated. Completely unrealistic to claim that. Anyway, let's continue reading this. This is Hemant Mehta speaking. As anyone who's been subject to racism, i.e. not Charlie Kirk, will tell you, it's exhausting to have to defend your own existence and self-worth to the sort of people who think blackface jokes are hilarious, take pride in Confederate monuments, and instinctively say things like all lives matter, because they don't understand what they're responding to. It's frustrating to have to explain American history to people whose career is built on distorting or ignoring it. But Kirk, of all people, should know what it's like to dedicate your life to something that doesn't exist. Here's another set of tweets from Charlie Kirk. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. John 14:6. This Easter, invite Jesus into your life. He will heal, guide, lead, teach, comfort, and love you. Jesus was God's ultimate gift to the world. Jesus is king. Oh my God. So he's just another Christian nationalist then. Here's another tweet. Jesus died for us, was tortured for us. He's a gift to broken humans. He is a teacher for the lost. He suffered so we can be forgiven. Jesus is love. Jesus is Lord. Jesus Christ. This guy is... I'm sorry. Look, I know religion isn't a mental illness. I know that. It isn't. It's not a delusion. Technically speaking, it's not. I mean, delusion is like a medical word with a medical definition. Religion doesn't fit the bill. Definitionally, it's not a delusion. But I'll be damned if it doesn't look exactly like it. Let's continue this tweet thread. Jesus taught us, walked with us, ate with us, worked with us, debated us, and then for doing nothing wrong, died for us. We don't deserve it. We didn't earn it. We're all sinners. We're broken, but have salvation, thanks to Jesus taking up the cross to save us. So the guy is obviously completely obsessed with Jesus, almost to an unhealthy level. Here's what Hemant Mehta said. It must be miserable to be Charlie Kirk. It takes effort to believe something so materially false. Charlie Kirk, like I said, is a bomb thrower. He basically says or does whatever it takes to get Trump's attention. It's really, honestly, pretty sad. He's even written a book to get Trump's attention, and Trump absolutely loved it and tweeted about it. So, doesn't surprise me that this guy's dealing with a serious level of cognitive dissonance.